You are the most important relationship. Before you swipe, text, or worry about being too much, start with you. Grow Therapy helps you build self-worth, set boundaries, and show up as your full self. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Craving the coffee flavor you love, but without the caffeine? Kachava's got you covered with their newest coffee flavor. This all-in-one nutrition shake delivers bold, authentic flavor, crafted from premium decaffeinated Brazilian beans. With 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, and so much more. Treat yourself to the flavor and nutrition your body craves. Go to kachava.com and use code FITNESS. New customers get 15% off their first order. That's KACHAVA.com, code FITNESS.
Some days call for some oomph to amplify your everyday look. Like when you want the look of false lashes without the extra effort. Reach for Thrive Causemetics Liquid Lash Volumizer Mascara. Or when you want all eyes on your smile, keep Empower Gloss Ultra Glossy Lip Serum in your bag. It's a burst of 24-hour hydration that smooths like a serum, shines like a gloss, and can be worn sheer or layered. You'll also look and feel your best with Thrive Causemetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. And for every product purchased, Thrive Causemetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Causemetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here back in the home studio. Thanks to WOKV for hosting me on Friday and Monday. Glad to be home, though, in my own bed behind my microphone. The phone number here, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, and text Eric, ERICK, to 33777. We will get to the Joe Kent stuff. We will. But first, we got to get to, well, the killings in Iran by Israel. We have killed the press corps' favorite Iranian. So, you know, the real hardliners are going to take over now. That's what we keep being told. Every time we kill a bunch of these hardline Nazi types in Iran, they're like, well, now we're going to get the real hardliners. We have killed, or the Israelis have killed, Ali Larijani, and Golemreza Solemani. Solemani is, I don't know if he's related to Qasem Soleimani, but he was the head of the militia, the Basij. They are the group that goes around on motorcycles gunning down innocent Iranians. Ali Larijani allegedly was the reasonable person. In fact, I got to read you some tweets. It is amazing how this guy can fluff up a bunch of reporters and they bend over backwards. It's just ridiculous. So here is Professor Vali Nasser, professor of Johns Hopkins, a former senior advisor to the State Department. Guess which State Department? Larijani's replacement will be appointed by the IRGC. With every assassination, U.S. and Israel engineer greater radicalization of Iran's leadership. It will make for a bleak future for Iran, Iranians, the region, and ultimately makes it far more difficult for the U.S. to disentangle. You got that? We killed the guy who orchestrated the murder of 35,000 Iranians and the raping of the nurses who helped the wounded. And suddenly, oh my gosh, we're going to get a real radical now. And this is Nick Kristof of the New York Times. I fear this take is right. When I met Ali Larijani, I found him an absolute insider kingpin of the Iranian regime, but also the kind of strong and pragmatic leader who just might be able to hammer out a peace deal. Not sure, but I wonder if the war will be harder to end now. I swear these people eat Snicker bars upside down so they can feel the ridges on the tongue. Good Lord. This is how Reuters, in Khamenei's absence, pragmatic Larijani emerges as a power broker in Iran. You got all these? John Simpson at the BBC has apparently deleted his tweet. He was a guy at the BBC, bent over backwards. Oh, what a reasonable, pragmatic Larijani. Larijani was a murderer. He was a mass murderer. If he's reasonable, I mean, it's a damning indictment on the rest of the Iranian regime, and consider how many of you are bending over backwards to be apologists for the Iranian regime. You should be ashamed of yourselves. This guy is not reasonable. He is a murderer. He's a mass murderer. It wasn't just him. It was Golemreza Solemani, who was in charge of the Basis. They are the militia, also killed. Both of them yesterday, you should know, were at a rally in Tehran urging supporters of the regime to take to the streets tonight. There's a annual fire festival. I forget the exact name in Iran. It is tonight. And they are urging the supporters of the regime to take to the streets and murder anyone who dares to defy the regime during during this celebration tonight. You got that? The two men who were killed by Israel, they were clearly followed home by drones and blown up. Last night, they urged the Iranian supporters, the regime supporters, to take to the streets and kill anyone who opposed the regime. By the way, do you know that two of the nurses who helped the wounded that Larijani had gunned down, nurses who helped the wounded survive, have been brutally raped? We now know that two nurses in Tehran had to have hysterectomies because they were so violently raped by men and with foreign objects that it tore their uteruses, and they had to be removed. What was their punishment? They helped save the lives of people who protested the regime. The nurses were expected to let people die. This is the regime we're talking about. This is the regime where this man, Reuters, Christiane Amanpour at CNN and others, they're all insisting that this guy is the reasonable guy. I want to read for you a tweet. Well, I can't read for you the tweet now because John Simpson deleted it. John Simpson is a BBC personality. And John Simpson, you need to understand this. John Simpson is a BBC reporter who lamented the death of Ali Larijani, how reasonable he was, how willing he was to talk. Gulnar Madavali replied to his tweet and said that's probably why they did it, to be honest. I need to pay attention to this, please. A BBC reporter tweeted out how reasonable and moderate and rational and open Ali Larijani was, and how terrible it was that he was murdered by Israel, despite the fact that Larijani oversaw the murder of 35,000 Iranians last month. And Golnar Matavali commented on his tweet, that's probably why they did it, to be honest. Who is Matavali? Why, that would be the Iran reporter at Bloomberg, who lived in Tehran until 2020. In other words, lived under the regime until 2020. Worked for BBC and Reuters. Reuters, the publication that called Larijani a moderate pragmatist. So Bloomberg's lead Iran reporter is lamenting the death of a murderer who directed the murder of over 35,000 people, not because he had American and Israeli blood on his hands, not because he was directing the war against America and Israel, but because, well, he might have been useful for a peace deal. You get a sense of how bad the press coverage is in Iran by how sympathetic they are to the regime. This is he's deleted it now, but this is the John Simpson quote. I've met Ali Larijani several times over the years. Yes, he was a top figure in a nasty regime, but he always seemed clever and reasonable, the kind of person you might want to negotiate a peace deal with. Is it a good idea for Israel to take out people like him? Wow. Ordered the deaths of 35,000 people, and they're upset. You know, there are a few reasonable Democrats out there today. If you get the show notes, text Eric to 33777, subscribe. Mark Penn and Andrew Stein. Andrew Stein used to be the head of the city council in New York. Mark Penn was Hillary and Bill Clinton's longtime pollster. Donald Trump's complaints about the news coverage of the Iran war are predictable and entirely justified. We are totally destroying the terrorist regime of Iran militarily, economically, and otherwise. Yet, if you read the failing New York Times, you would incorrectly think we're not winning, he wrote Friday morning on Truth Social. Pick up Sunday's Times, and it's as if the editors took that as a command rather than a criticism. War sends more tremors through a shaken world economy, reads a headline across the top of the page. With a speculative headline, fallout from prolonged conflict with Iran could bring catastrophic consequences. Among the catastrophes the article cites, quote, in Kenya, tea growers and traders worried their exports to Iran would rot on the dock. The other story above the front page fold of the New York Times is a critique of the defense secretary. Hegg says vengeful rhetoric grew from experience in Iraq. Inside the paper are 6 more pages of war headlines, almost all relentlessly negative. There are disdainful pieces about the Secretary of State and about the central U.S. ally in the effort, Israel. There's more economic gloom. The biggest developments in Saturday's paper was the U.S. strike on Karg Island, Iran's main oil export hub. The president said the raid totally obliterated military facilities on the island and that he decided to spare oil infrastructure. Clearly, the U.S. could strike them and do much damage. The Times headline depicted the raid as ineffective. The only positive headline about the war effort, quote, to fight Iran's drones, U.S. taps knowledge, hard won in Ukraine. Largely absent are even the most basic stories analyzing Iran's losses. Now, let me tell you, there is a piece out there from Mohammed Saloom. Now, who is Mohammed Saloon? Well, he's an assistant professor of international politics and security at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies and an honorary research fellow at the University of Exeter. He writes this: the U.S.-Israeli strategy against Iran is working. Here's why. 2 weeks into Operation Epic Fury, the dominant narrative has settled into a comfortable groove. The United States and Israel stumbled into a war without a plan. Iran is retaliating across the region. Oil prices are surging, and the world is facing another Mideast quagmire. U.S. senators have called it a blundle. Cable news has tallied the crises. Commentators have warned of a long war. The chorus is loud and in some respects understandable. War is ugly, and this one has imposed real costs on millions of people across the Middle East, including the city I live in, Doha, Qatar. But the narrative is wrong. Not because the costs are imaginary, but because the critics are measuring the wrong things. They're cataloging the price of the campaign while ignoring the strategic ledger. When you look at what's actually happened to Iran's principal instruments of power, its ballistic missile arsenal, its nuclear infrastructure, its air defenses, its navy, and its proxy command architecture, the picture is not one of U.S. failure. It is one of systematic, phased degradation of a threat that previous administrations allowed to grow for 4 decades. I write this from Doha, where Iranian missiles have triggered alerts for residents to take shelter, and Qatar Airways has started operating evacuation flights. I lived through 4 years of war in Baghdad. I have worked for the U.S. Department of State. I have advised defense and intelligence agencies in multiple countries. I have no interest in cheerleading for war. But I have spent my academic career studying how states authorize the use of force through intelligence institutions, and what I see in the current campaign is a recognizable military operation proceeding through identifiable phases against an adversary whose capacity to project power is collapsing in real time. This is such a compelling piece. Multiple reporters have cited it, from the New York Times to the Washington Post to Semaphore to CNN and others, all of them drawing attention to it. And it's at Al Jazeera, not exactly a publication friendly to the West. It's gotten so much attention and so much acclaim for its insightfulness. You've got former members of the Biden administration rushing out saying, this isn't true. This isn't true. This is wrong. Trump is losing this war. This is a bad war. When you got Biden-Harris people coming out attacking the president saying, pay no attention to the guy who's in the region, who specializes in this stuff. He knows not what he's talking about. It gives you a pretty good sense that perhaps things are going well. You've got Ben Rhodes, the Hamasnik of the Obama White House, out lamenting the death of Ali Larijani. He's losing all of his friends out there. I'd remind you that during the 2008 election, Ali Larijani said Iran preferred Barack Obama to win because he'd be more flexible than John McCain. The next year, when the Green Revolution broke out around the Middle East, Larijani murdered thousands of Iranians, and Barack Obama abandoned the protesters and turned the other way. And this week we have killed Larijani, or the Israelis have. And the left is melting down. We have killed a mass murderer, and the left is furious about it. Ask yourself why. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this may be my last day on radio. I just got a text message from Nicole Bennett from the recruiting team that she's hiring for 18 part-time remote openings supporting Amazon sellers with product updates to help improve visibility. All I would need to do is work 60 to 90 minutes a day, 4 days a week, and I could earn $1,000 a day. Free training, 20 paid vacation days annually. I'm wow, $1,000 a day. Well, I will take it under advice. Okay, in reality, one of the reasons I use Incogni is because, and this isn't actually an Incogni ad, cut out so much of those sorts of things. But you would think that in this day and age of technical accomplishment, the FCC would be able to figure out, working with the cell phone providers, how to track down these sorts of scams from the robocalls to this and be able to cut them out. I thought they were working on some sort of digital fingerprint technology that every phone would have that would block these sorts of phone calls. I for the life of me, don't understand how we're inundated with these things, people taking advantage of all this sort of stuff. It's just kind of ridiculous to me that here we are in the 21st century and we've got this situation. Well, in any event, I think I'll stay and do my radio job, having thought about it. The greater long-term earnings potential get me in my private jet quicker, perhaps. All right, let me tell you about Swiss America. Swiss America wants to help you save on your retirement and finances. They want to give you their free report, The Secret War on Cash. You can get it by calling or texting 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. 2646. All you got to do is mention my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K. When you call or text them, just text them my name. They'll send you that report for free. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. Now, importantly, if you go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric today, you'll also see their News and Insights tab on the website. They have a great blog that gives you a lot of up-to-date news about the markets, about global currencies, about trading, about the BRIC nations. It keeps you up to speed. They've got a great podcast, Swiss America Trading. They're trying to make you the individual investor who takes care of yourself. They're trying to make you smarter. They're trying to help you protect your hard-earned assets. You know, the secret war on cash they've been talking about applies to crypto, digital currency. It applies to everything. So you need to learn it. Get the report for free. Go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. You'll see the form you can fill out, and they'll mail it to you. Or go to 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646. Let Swiss America help you. Message and data rates do apply, or may apply, I suppose. When we come back, Joe Kent, the director of counterterrorism, has decided to quit because he doesn't like us fighting the world's greatest supplier of terrorism.
Finding a hoodie that lasts through the season can be tough. The American Giant Classic Full Zip hoodie is made to last a lifetime, so you can count on it to bring you comfort and warmth year after year. The iconic Classic Full Zip hoodie is the jacket that started it all for American Giant. Custom heavyweight fleece and side panels for mobility make it the best hoodie ever. And a double-lined hood and reinforced elbow patches means this hoodie will last. Born from a commitment to support the communities that create its products, every American Giant piece is made in America and designed to last. No exceptions. The result is durable clothing, like the premium Slub Crew Tee, No BS high-rise pant, and slim roughneck pant that become part of your life. Snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life, the American Giant Classic Full Zip. And save 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.
Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very, very happy to have you. If you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast. In fact, the very first link is the show notes, and that's what you want. Let's get into the Joe Kent news. For those of you who do not know Joe Kent, who's the director of counterintelligence, or counterterrorism, rather, for the United States. Joe Kent, director of counterterrorism for the United States, has resigned. Now, if you're a long-time listener of this program, you will know I have never cared for Joe Kent. And yet again, your host is right about somebody. And I want all of you to know it. Why? Because he's a terrible person. He is someone who aligned himself with white nationalists. He was a conspiracy theorist. He tried to blame the United States for the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And he is also deeply, deeply, deeply hostile to Israel and has often sounded very anti-Semitic. And I think today we can say, as such, he is. The president, a short time ago, was asked about Joe Kent quitting the administration in protest of the Iran war.
As your director of national counterterrorism, Joe Kent, he just resigned today. He said he can't support your conflict with Iran. What's your reaction to that? And did you?
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it. And many people, many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that president should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. They were, if we didn't do the attack, or if I'll go a step further, if I didn't terminate the Iran nuclear deal given to us, one of the worst deals ever made by Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there loaded with cash, hundreds of millions of dollars. You would have been very happy. This was a wonderful. They said hundreds of millions. People forget that. Does anybody remember? Right? You remember. Hundreds of millions of dollars in a Boeing 757. I think they had two of them loaded. They took the seats out and they put cash. And it was so much that there wasn't a bank in Virginia, Maryland, or D.C. that had any money left. They stripped them of all their money, put it into place, sent it to Iran almost as ransom. That's not going to happen with Trump. And nobody ever did anything about it. Nobody ever said anything about it. Can you imagine if I did that? So they've been a threat for a long time, but they've really been a threat. If I didn't terminate Obama's horrible deal that he made, the Iran nuclear deal, you would have had a nuclear war 4 years ago. You would have had nuclear holocaust, and you would have had it again if we didn't bomb the site. So when somebody is working with us that says they didn't think Iran was a threat, we don't want those people because, and there are some people, I guess I would say that, but they're not smart people or they're not savvy people. Iran was a tremendous threat. And virtually every NATO nation, and this is the thing, if they told me it wasn't a threat and therefore they don't want to help, but when they say it was a threat and it was a major threat, every one of them, I think every one of them, I don't know of one that said they're not a threat, but when they say it was a threat, but we're not going to help, I think they're very foolish.
President goes on from there, obviously. Let me put this in perspective for you. So, first of all, you need to know this. Joe Kent, in conservative politics, he wouldn't have passed muster for the Trump administration. The Trump administration threw a lot of the old rules out the window. One of the long-held principles in the conservative movement is that a man is never further away than where a man is never further right than his wife. A man is never further right than his wife. What does that mean? If your wife is a liberal, you're not going to be a conservative. If your wife is a rabid conservative, well, you're not going to get very far away from her to the left of her. When I was involved in politics and I was involved in picking candidates running for office and getting them endorsed, I always wanted to meet the wife. Because if a wife is solidly conservative, the husband's going to be. Again, the husband is never too far to the left of the wife. And if the wife is on the left already, the man's going to be a liberal, whether you want to believe it or not. Man is ultimately going to be a liberal. I can't tell you the number of men I have seen in life who were married to rock-ribbed conservative women. Their wives passed away or they got divorced. They got remarried to someone who's liberal. And guess what? The man becomes a liberal, abandons all of his convictions. The wife sets the benchmark for where the husband is. Joe Kent's first wife was killed in an ISIS bombing in Syria. I want to read for you his letter. Mr. President, after much reflection, I've decided to resign my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the war in the Middle East were a trap that robbed Americans of their precious lives. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. Now, pause. You got this? In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. In fact, on September 25th, 2024, Joe Kent tweeted this, quote, Iran has been after Trump since January of 2020 after he ordered the targeted killing of the terrorist Qasem Soleimani. This isn't a new threat. The Secret Service consistently failing to secure Trump is new. We need to figure out exactly why these failures keep happening. But also, you should note that he once declared that by killing Qasem Soleimani, we were somehow going to get into some sort of broader escalatory campaign. This is Joe Kent after the killing of Soleimani. Quote, Iranian retaliation is now clearly inevitable for President Trump's decision to order the killing of Soleimani. It appears this will set off a chain reaction of strikes and counterstrikes that will plunge America into a new endless war in the Middle East unless we act to prevent it. That was Joe Kent then. Like it or not, this will most likely escalate into a full-scale U.S.-Iran war. He wrote that at the time when Donald Trump assassinated Qasem Soleimani, and now he claims that Donald Trump showed leadership by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people nor justifies the cost of American lives. His wife was killed by ISIS in Syria, not by Israel. Israel did not manufacture the civil war in Syria, and yet he wants to blame Israel. He's clearly auditioning as co-host of the Tucker Carlson Show. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joe Kent, breaking news, they were just seen fighting each other as they were trying to get on CNN for a favorable, never been prouder of you, newfound respect interview. I mention no man is ever to the right of his wife nor far to the left of his wife. You know who Joe Kent is married to now? This is relevant. It is relevant for the politics of the matter. People are beating me up for pointing this out online, and it's true. He's married to a woman named Heather Kaiser who works for the Gray Zone, which is a pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel, pro-Iran website. She got a bachelor's in geopolitics from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, earned a degree in sculpture from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Since 2020 riots, she returned to research and analysis of current events for organizations such as American Contingency and Gray Zone. She is a writer for a far-left anti-Israel publication. And guess where Joe Kent lands? On being anti-Israel. I told you guys at the time this guy was bad news. So the director of counterintelligence for the United States is upset that Donald Trump has gone to war against the greatest originator of terrorism on planet Earth because he doesn't think they're an imminent threat to the United States. Why? Because they haven't got nukes just yet. Wait until they get nukes. Jackie Heinrich of Fox News. Senior administration officials say Joe Kent was a known leaker and was cut out of POTUS intelligence briefings months ago. He's not been part of any Iran planning discussions or briefings since. Officials also say the White House told Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard that Kent should be fired for leaks, and she never did it. Now, let's put this all in perspective here. You have the wife of the director of National Counterterrorism Center retweeting attacks on President Trump's Iran strike. She works for a far-left anti-Israel site that's also pro-Iran. You've also got Tulsi Gabbard, who is nowhere to be seen, shut out of intelligence conversations because she's opposed to a war with Iran. You've got the president of the United States' staff tells Tulsi Gabbard, fire this guy, he's leaking. She refuses to fire the guy. And suddenly today we get because of the Jews, I'm quitting. It's not a stretch to suggest that perhaps Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard structured his resignation in this way. Tulsi Gabbard, you have to remember, was shut out of conversations about Venezuela because they were afraid of what she might do with the information if we went in to get Maduro. Tulsi Gabbard has been shut out of the conversations about Iran. Tulsi Gabbard has been repeatedly shut out of conversations about our foreign operations because there's actually no trust for her loyalty to the president and his administration. Tulsi Gabbard was told to fire Joe Kent. She refused, and suddenly He has a spectacular flame out today where he says it's because of the Israelis. It's all because of the Israelis. What do you want to? I don't believe I'm going out on a limb to say Gabbard probably went to him and said, "Hey, Joe, they want me to fire you. Why don't you go quit and make a big deal about Israel?" It wouldn't surprise me at all. Gabbard was protecting him while he was running counterterrorism, and he doesn't want us to take out the single greatest originator of terrorism on planet Earth. And he wants to blame Israel for all of it. He blames Israel for the death of his wife, his first wife, who was in Syria working for the Americans, who was killed by ISIS in the Syrian civil war that Israel had nothing to do with. He's clearly auditioning for like co-host of Tucker Carlson or something. He's clearly doing this in a way to burn bridges with this administration and shame them and blame the Jews. Good riddance to the guy. Good riddance to the guy. By the way, why should we wait for Iran to be an imminent threat, given 49 years of Iran killing Americans? Why should we wait? This is absolutely insane to me, the idea that, well, they're not an imminent threat. They haven't actually built a nuclear weapon yet. Good riddance to this guy. I want it on the record that I have been opposed to Joe Kent the entire time. I told you guys he was nothing but a poopster. God bless him for his service to the country. What did he do? He came back, got online, and stirred the pot with conspiracy theories, white nationalism, anti-Israel stuff. Conspiracy theories. He never should have been put in the job in the first place. Tulsi Gabbard should never have been put in her job. I'm right about her, too. I am right on these. She should be out the door as well. And you know what? I am literally the only person in talk radio today, it seems like, who doesn't have to reverse myself on Joe Kent, because I always knew he was a garbage pick, and today he proved me right. Welcome back. This hour of the program brought to you by Van Allen Golf. Text the word golf to 33777. Find out about their fine golf equipment, and it is fine golf equipment. I made a 35-foot putt for par this weekend with my Van Allen golf putter. I don't promise that you will get the exquisite results I did. And fair warning, 2 holes later, I went so downhill I was ready to throw my bag in the lake. But nonetheless, I made par with a 35-foot putt with my Van Allen golf putter. VanAllenGolf.com. Check him out on Instagram. It's ALLEN, or just text golf to 33777. The dime is going to be redesigned, and the left is furious about it because of the changes that Donald Trump has demanded to be made and that have been approved by the Secretary of Treasury. They have decided to get rid of the olive branch, the symbol of peace. They're bringing back the eagle with arrows, which is a war symbol. And people are very upset with Donald Trump for making these changes. This is the headline from the Washington Post. New dime to celebrate America's birthday takes on new meaning under Trump. The design commemorating the nation's 250th anniversary was recommended to the Treasury Secretary. Critics have criticized its lack of olive branches. From Mother Jones, Donald Trump scrapped DEI coins. The new dime is losing the olive branch. From People magazine, Trump administration drops the olive branch from U.S. seal on new dime coins, but keeps the arrows. They are so upset. And from Fast Company, Trump is turning coins into miniature symbols of his priorities. The emerging Liberty dime is missing the traditional symbols of peace. It was approved by the Biden administration, not the Trump administration, in 2024. The emerging Liberty dime is a one-year-only coin for the 250th anniversary of the birth of this nation. It is losing the olive branch because in 1776, the colonists had given up on peace and decided it was time for revolution. The eagle with arrows is significant because it represents the fight for independence. Without the olive branch, that is actually from the designer of the coin chosen by the Biden administration, which approved the coin. And now people are freaking out, claiming it was a Trump-approved coin when it wasn't. You need the Eric Erickson approved Rinnai tankless water heater. Go to talkingtankless.com and learn how to yank your tank and get a tankless water heater from Rinnai. You'll never run out of hot water again. talkingtankless.com. If you go to the website, you can click a little button that says talk to a Rinnai professional. They can install it for you. It's like the size of a small carry-on bag. It's way smaller than your current tank and way more efficient. In fact, our power bill went down because we had electric water heaters. Our power bill went down when we got rid of the tank and put in the tankless water heater. You might see the same thing, and you'll never run out of hot water. You can upgrade your current home very easily. They're very reasonably priced. Install is not a heavy lift for someone who knows what they're doing. And if you're building a new house, it's a no-brainer. Get a tankless water heater, and you'll always have hot water. TalkingTankless.com. Go to TalkingTankless.com.